Hello everybody, welcome back to our channel. Today we'll give you a full review of Apple's new MacBook Air M2. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so that you won't miss any future updates. Alright, with that said, let's talk about the design and the colors. The MacBook Air M2 is so thin that it could be mistaken for an iPad when it's close. That's how thin and light this MacBook is, measuring only 0.44 inches thick with the lid open. An everyday Big Pen is thicker than this machine. The Air M2 is 20% smaller than the previous Air, and you still get a larger 13.6-inch display. All aluminum chassis offers an outstanding balance of durability and lightweight. You'll have to appreciate the smooth rounded corners and lid that makes this laptop easy to hold and open with one hand. Starlight, Midnight, Silver, or Space Gray are the colors available this time around. Alright, let's talk about the ports. One of the biggest things for me at least. The Apple MacBook Air M2 keeps things minimal with port selection. You'll find two Thunderbolt 4/USB 4 ports on the left hand side and a MagSafe power adapter. The latter connection makes it easy to attach the cable to the connector and the port. There's also a headphone jack on the right hand side. The MacBook Air M2 has caught up to the MacBook Pro M2 in display quality, and that is a big deal. You get a bright and colorful 13.6-inch panel, a resolution of 2560 by 1664 pixels for watching videos and photo editing. Also, the picture was bright enough that you could enjoy from a wide viewing angle. It's also impressive in many lab tests. It averages brightness at 489 nits and peaks at 495 nits with HDR content. That's better than the MacBook Pro M2, which in the same test averaged 474 and 490 nits with HDR. Also brighter than the Dell's XPS 13 OLED's 357 nit average. Things look good as in color reproduction and accuracy. The Air's M2 display registered 107% of the sRGB color gamut. The MacBook Air 4-speaker sound system is pretty good, but the sound wasn't as rounded as the MacBook Pro's 14-inch 6-speaker sound system. Alright, let's talk about specs. The new MacBook Air uses an Apple M2 chip, hence the name, which brings the same 8-core CPU and 2 more graphics cores than the M1. The Apple's M2 delivers faster performance with less power. It's rated for the same 18 hours of battery life. And also the M2 chip increases the RAM allocation with up to 24 gigabytes and 50% more memory bandwidth. Like the M1 MacBook Pro, the M2 model lacks a fan. Apple has to stop the MacBook Air from overheating somehow. So this means the processor will slow down when it gets to a sustained workload so it can cool down the processor. On the other hand, the M2 MacBook Pro, which has a fan, will run faster and for more extended periods. The notch above the Air's new screen accommodates the webcam much better than last year's 2020 MacBook Air. Apple has added its new 1080p webcam, so FaceTime calls should look crisp. But you won't see a card reader, SD card reader, or HDMI ports on a model like this. Like the 2020 MacBook Air, the 2022 model will offer two Thunderbolt USB 4 ports and 3.5 headphone jack. Then again, Apple has added a MagSafe port, so you won't be having to clog up a Thunderbolt port while charging, so this is good news. Let's talk about the M2. Apple added the M2 to the MacBook Air, marking the debut of the successor to the M1. The M2 has an 8-core CPU, much like the M1, but it supports 10 GPU cores. Apple says the M2 chip uses next generation 5nm technology. It gets better performance per watt. It consists of 20 billion transistors, 25% more than the M1. It adds more memory bandwidth at 100 gigabytes per second. The M2 chip is 1.4 times faster than the M1, 15 times faster than the older Intel-based MacBooks. It has an 18% faster CPU and a 35% more powerful GPU. Also, 40% faster neural engine. This chip is 20% faster than the M1 chip in multi-score performance on Geekbench. The M2 runs at 3.49 GHz compared to 3.2 for the M1. It achieved a single score of 1919. It is about 12% faster than the M1 MacBook Air. The M2 chip offers up to 10-core GPU compared to the 8-core M1. Like the M1 MacBook Air, the M2 Air does not have a fan that can operate, so it will slow down in a sustained workload. When it's getting too hot, it's got to bring down the performance so it can bring down the temperature. That brings us to performance. You can have dozens of tabs in Google Chrome, then waiting through a ton of Slack messages, also editing in Photoshop while uploading files to your CMS, and powered smooth by the MacBook Air's M2. The MacBook Air M2 hit 1932 on the single CPU test and 8919 on the multi-score. The MacBook Pro M2 was on par with the Air M2, reaching 1898 and 8911. The Air M2 beats the best Windows laptops on benchmarks like the Asus ZenBook S13 OLED and the Lenovo Yoga 9i Gen 7. One of my biggest complaints is that the new Air is stuck with only supporting a single external screen. If you're the type to have a 2-monitor setup, you might want to consider a different model. Alright, so Touch ID. The M2 MacBook Air has a Touch ID fingerprint sensor located at the top of the keyboard next to the function keys. Touch ID is power driven by a secure enclave. It keeps your fingerprint data and personal information safe. You can use the Touch ID instead of a pass. It replaces a password for password protected apps. You can use it to log in, make Apple Pay purchases in Safari, and a lot more. So same functions that you would get with Face ID, you get with Touch ID. Let me know down in the comments what you think Face ID will make it to the Mac. Let's talk battery life. The MacBook Air M2 is one of the longest lasting laptops for the money. In the battery test involving continuous web surfing at 150 nits screen brightness, the new Air averaged 14 hours and 6 minutes. That's a bit behind the previous Air M1, which landed at 14 hours and 41 minutes, but it's still great endurance. Our MacBook Air M2 comes with a 35-watt dual USB port compact power adapter. It's included with configurations with a 10-core GPU and 512 gigabytes of storage. The advantage of this is that you can plug even your iPhone to this adapter. So you could be using one port for the Mac, another one for the iPhone. So that's always a plus. The standard $1199 Air M2 comes with a 30-watt USB-C power adapter, but you could upgrade to a dual charger for 20 bucks. If you want faster charging, there's a 67-watt USB-C power adapter for 20 bucks as well. You gotta weigh your options. Fast charging, double charging, shoot, you can still save time. So that's all for today. If you have any questions, please comment below. We will be making more videos like this, so stay connected. Thanks for watching. My name is Nick, and that was my time. Peace.